to allow our crops and the soil to heal and to gather those elements that they need for the next production of harvest. And for our animals who are in the mountain and in the rangelands, searching for water and for food, we just pray for their abundance as they have provided abundance for us in this time of harvest, in this time of celebration, and in this time where we bring our families together. But also, as we know, in this airbound virus, this silent, tasteless monster still out in our community and impacting our most vulnerable, those who have chronic health challenges, those who are putting their lives on the line for us to be safe, for our police officers, our frontline health administrators, the doctors, the nurses, the janitors, everyone who goes to work in service for the people. For our Navajo Nation leadership who continues to strive together and to get the words and the compassion that they need to provide that direct relief to our people, to touch their hearts and their minds, to know that they are not abandoned, and that as we work together collectively through hard, challenging conversations, that at the end result will result in a community that is on the healing pathway. And that as our children continue to gear up for their finals, for their winter break, as they get on our school buses or is challenged for internet in their homes, that we continue to give them that guidance and that spirit of healing so that they're mentally strong, that they know that they have the ability to succeed, and that every one of our five-fingered beings who are placed here for a special purpose, and that they have a special gift to offer the world, and that they are loved, and that they are valued, and that what happens to them matters, and that we are all here to heal. And for our veterans who continue to suffer through PTSD, through neglect, through dismissiveness, that we pray for their leadership and for our leadership to come to understanding on how to work and talk with one another as they risk their lives in the line of fire for our freedom, and here at home to continue and maintain order, that this land that was given to us by our holy ones continue to be protected, and that their place in the world has a value, and their thoughts and the way that they comprehend information is in a unique way that's built through the lens of trauma, that's built through the lens of surviving, that's built through the lens of trying to be respected as a human being, and that we continue to build up a system that recognizes not only their efforts, but their mothers and fathers who have lost their children to combat, to the surviving spouses who supported their loved ones through combat, and for the children and the legacies of our co-talkers, our World War II veterans, Korea War, conflict, Vietnam, and all of the current modern day conflicts, that we're finally a federal nation, not at war, but we continue to strive to provide those services and those owners to those who served our country, our homelands, and our communities. We pray for our elders who continue to pray for all of us every morning. They do not discriminate on who their prayers are sent out to, and that they pray for their leadership, they pray for their families, for their communities, for their animals, for the elements, to take care of them, to nourish them, and then for us to be reminded to take care of them and not to forget about their pleas and their concerns. So this morning, as we wait for the light dusting of snow, that our mountains continue to protect us, that our waters continue to clean themselves off, that the air and that purification happens, and that we're able to keep our homes warm with this burning fire. And that we pray for all of our relatives who struggle, who are unable to stay in their homes, and they struggle with their own trauma and are out in the towns and in the cities, that we pray for their healing, and that we pray that we can provide solutions so they will not suffer in this winter weather, and we will not lose another relative to exposure, but that as we all come together and make sure that we're all safe collectively. And we can do this with the work of the Budget and Finance Committee, with our Navajo Nation Council, the Office of the Speaker. We pray for our President, Jonathan Nez, Vice President Myron Lizer, our Chief Justice Joanne, where we continue to help and be the voice of our people, and that we continue to have the courage to break these intergenerational bonds that have left our people hopeless and despair, and return their dignity and their might and their human essence, in which we prayed and which we have asked the Holy Ones for. And we just want to restore this positive energy. And with my voice and the vibrations of these words, may you be blessed in your healing. May you be blessed with your mental strength, with your physical abilities, and reconnect to our earth. Give her offerings, give the water offerings, go and provide, and do what your grandparents have taught you. And I'll say this all. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time and opportunity to provide these healing words to not only the committee, but everyone who's listening online.
Vice Chair, back on call.
Okay, Sitsalayate. Then Chair Henio, *6. I believe you're muted.
Okay, hold on. Okay, we got it, thanks. Okay, Kehlan, thank you, Ashnad, for that wonderful prayer. It's really meaningful. I'm here in the steno conference room, and they got a new TV and set up there. I'm trying to mute it here so I don't have no background noise. But with that, let's move forward on our agenda here, proposed agenda. Special guests, recognizing guests and visiting officials. We do have our legislative branch staff, Peggy Nakay and Ramona Nelson, with us this morning. Helping us out with the meeting today. Thank you. We have the Office of Legislative Counsel on the line.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Laureline with Office of Legislative Counsel.
Good morning, Laureline. Good morning. Do we have Office Navajo Nation Department of Justice on the line?
Good morning. This is Rudy Anaya with the Tax and Finance Unit, Department of Justice.
Good morning, Mr. Anaya. Thank you for being on the call. Moving down, 24th Navajo Nation Council. We do have Delegate Oroso on the line. Too also. Delegate Eben Yazi on the line. Any other delegates on the line this morning? Any other members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council on the line?
Chairman Henio, this is Ramona.
Yes, Ramona.
Yes, Chairman Henyo, I have Honorable Nathaniel Brown, the Budget and Finance Committee member present. Just FYI.
Margashina, thank you. Thank you for that. As for the record, Delegate Nathaniel Brown is also on the line. With this, do we have the Office of the President, Vice President on the line or staff? Office of the President, Vice President. Moving forward, Navajo Nation Council Speaker Seth Damon, staff.
Good morning, Chair. Yate. This is Donovan.
Good morning, Donovan. Thank you for being on the call. Moving forward, Navajo Nation Department of Justice, Madam Chief Justice Joanne Jane, and staff. Okay, moving forward, do we have our Navajo Nation chapters represented this morning?
Yes, new chair. This is Olin Kiomi with the Kyoto Canyon chapter as the CSC.
Good morning, Shannon. Thank you for being on the call, Mr. Kiyomi. Thank you. Gashina, let's move forward to Navajo Nation programs. Any program staff on the line, division and programs.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Elizabeth Bigay, Office of the Controller.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Controller, Ms. Bigay.
Good morning. This is Michelle or Dr. Branzer with the Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services. I'm the Health Services Administrator.
Good morning. Thank you for being on the call.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. This is Michelle Morris with Navajo Department of Health. I'm on the call.
Good morning, Ms. Morris. Thank you for being on the call.
Yes, good morning.
Anybody else for the record? Introductions.
Good morning. This is Tristan Black. I'm a graduate student listening in. Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Black. Thank you for calling in. Okay, with that, let's move forward to the reading of our proposed agenda. Peggy, if you read the agenda to the record for us, please.
This is the proposed agenda of the Budget and Finance Committee of the Navajo Nation Council's December 7, 2021 regular meeting via teleconference. Presiding Jamie Henry, Chairperson, Raymond Smith, Jr., Vice Chairperson. Placed via teleconference, Window Rock, Navajo Nation. 1, call the meeting to order, the roll call, the invocation. 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. 3, review and adopt the agenda. 4, review and adopt the journal. None. 5, receive reports. A, CARES Act funds update presented by Elizabeth Bigay, Interim Controller, Office of the Controller. First bullet is the fund status. The second is the hardship assistance phase 2. B, 2-year budget cycle presented by Dominic Bial, Director, Office of Management and Budget. 6, old business done. 7, new business. A, legislation number 0240-21. 2, or B, legislation number 0241-21. C, legislation number 0244-21. 8, close of the session, written announcements, adjournment. The next regular meeting is December 21, 2021.
Okay, thank you for that reading. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as read? Motion of the Budget and Finance Committee members.
Vice Chair Smith, motion.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Smith to accept the agenda as read. Is there a second?
Yellow hair, second. Yellow hair.
Delegate Jimmy Yellow Hair. Second. We do have a motion and second on the floor. Committee members, is there any questions, comments on the proposed agenda? I'm hearing none. Call for the question to accept the agenda as read. Ramona, if you would lead us in a roll call vote to accept the agenda.
Yes, Chairman, roll call vote for accepting the agenda. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote? Honorable Amber Kenneth-Bott Crowdy, how do you vote?
Yellow hair votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Bott Crowdy, how do you vote? Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green via text. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
Shut up, vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Bott Crowdy, how do you vote? Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, chairman not voting, and 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Christian, I thank you for that roll call vote. We do have an agenda and it receives a due pass with the vote of, was it 5 in favor, 0 opposed?
Chairman is 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, 4 in favor and 0 opposed. With that, let's move forward. I can't understand the Budget and Finance Committee members. And next item on our agenda is review and adopt the journals. There's none. Receiving reports, CARES Act funds update presented by Ms. Elizabeth Begay, our interim controller. So Ms. Begay, are you on the line?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Budget and Finance Committee. I just emailed Peggy my memo dated today, December 7th. The hardship cares status report. I believe everybody received it. So based on that, I listed the available budget that was approved by the council for the CARES hardship program. $361,589,349. Interest income earned as of 11/30/2021, $331,225. That's a total of available balance for hardship assistance program of $361,920,574. Total number of recipients to date, that includes hardship 1 and hardship 2, 312,010 Navajos, and that combined adult and minors, for a total of $346,958,755. And the breakdown for minors, 85,253 out of the 312,010 recipients, and that is equivalent to $38,743,795. And for adults, that's 226,757 recipients, for a total amount of $308,214,960. So total available balance to date for hardship cares, $14,961,819. Then the next page is a pending check run. There's 5,942 recipients that we will be processing their checks. The goal is by today, and that's amounting to 6,441,000. In the breakdown, minors, 2,472 minors for amount of 1,236,000, and for adults, 3,470, and amounting to $5,205,000. There's applications we received for babies born after 10/1/2020, 453 babies, and Vital Records did not issue CIB for the baby. So that's basically pending, but if Vital Records cannot issue their CIB, then they will not be able to be assisted. And the third pending check run, that's another 5,256 applicants with problems with their CIB. The CIB problems include their CIB has been used by prior payments, meaning they were already paid, registered paid CIB. Another problem, CIB was not found in the Vital Records database, or their CIB was used by another person with the same name but different last name, or different first name but the same last name. So we're still trying to resolve that. That's why the 5,782,000, that's just an estimate. The fourth pending check run, that's for 1,185 applicants with no copy of CIB attached to their application. So the next step we will need to do is verify it against Vital Records if their CIB that they included in their application are valid CIBs. The fifth pending check run, that's 3,610 waitlist with no contact info. This is carried over from Baker Tilly portal. The Baker Tilly portal showed 8,869 waitlists. However, we assisted 5,259 of that waitlist. So therefore, there's 3,610 left with no contact info. And there's also another 2,756 work in progress, meaning the employees that we hired to assist us in processing the application, they are still entering the data for these 256 or 2,756 applications. And we estimate it will be approximately 4 million. So we calculated approximately 2,707,681 deficit from the available balance to date. In addition, there are approximately 7,500 outstanding checks amounting to $8,200,000. This will be deemed unspent monies that may revert back to the U.S. Treasury by December 31st, 2021. And we recommend any unspent monies budgeted for hardship cares fund reallocated to small business assistance program before the fund expiration date. Of course, these amounts that I reported may change based on the outstanding checks that may be cleared, and also based on the work in progress of those applications that we are still receiving, and pending the reconciliation of our general ledger with our bank statements. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Chair Genio, I believe you're muted.
There you go, Akashina. Thank you. Thank you for that report. With that, is there a motion to accept the report?
Vice Chair Smith, a motion.
Motion by Vice Chair Smith. Is there a second? There's a motion to accept the report by Vice Chair Smith. Is there a second?
Delegate Yellowhair.
Motion and I'll get Jimmy Yellow here second. So we do have a motion and a second to accept the report. Are there any questions for Madam Controller, Ms. Begay? If there's none.
Yes, Delegate Begay, I have a question.
This is Delegate
This
Yellowhair.
is Delegate Crotty with the question.
Akashina, the lineup would be is Delegate Elmer P. Begay will go first. Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. Delegate Amber Kinatswakari. Vice Chair Smith. That's the lineup. Delegate Elmer Begay, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Chair, out on the members of the Budget and Finance Committee, and people that are on the line, though, Yate, Abene, Mihidadishni. Out on the, as we know that, listen to my Shadejib prayer, because you don't know that it's the feeling, and then also the environment that's changing, and the climate and the weather is changing into interseason. For that prayer. So we know that. So only that we saw the new moon. So it's the neck ashika in the traditional Navajo traditional seasoning or monthly season changing. Winter moon winter so and then to talk about this fundings here and the hardship, and with that light of how my sister prayer, the way the prayer, listening to that is that we have some fundings here. We have fundings here that affected the whole Navajo Nation. So over a year that is going to have this fundings here. So right now, with that, these are the fundings that was the balance, and then the status of it. So right now, it's easy to look at from the expenditure part of it down to the number one pending check run is although that's where we're starting to have questions. I have questions. So on number 3, number 2, and out on the all the way to number 6. What kind of plans do we have for that? Like, for example, the the 456 babies that were born after October 1st, 2020. Are we working with are we gonna be working with the census office regarding to if they can get their CIB out on the on number 3, 5,256 problem with the CIB. Ada, the status of it, if we don't get it, Ada, is there gonna be a timeline for that, or Ada, or that I know that see at that time we were talking to controller, they were trying to talk with the census office is to hire more CIB workers to try to help receive some of the CIBs for these people in there. Okay, 80 a day, yeah, 8 for 3, 4, and 5, and 6. 80 get down. I just want to have the plans you have and any deadlines that we have to do, and then also is there any help that how can we help as a leaders and as chapters to work on it. That will be my question, Chair Henio. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys for those questions. Delegate Jimmy Gelly here.
Oh, yeah, that's been as chairman.
Good morning,
Yeah, that's been chairman. So yeah, that's been the vice chairman. Out of my college 24 councilman, budget finance committee. Shinari Kirigedi from a acting controller, Elizabeth Gay, and the worksheets about expenditure report, fund balance. I just wondered if there's any worksheet where it's coming from Elizabeth Gay, so we can have that information. Is it 80-inch kid or that's my my request, Chairman.
With that, I'll defer back to Ms. Elizabeth Gay, Madam Controller, for a response. Then after that, I'll go to Delegate Amber Kanaswa-Karate and Vice Chair Smith. Ms. Gay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Budget and Finance Committee, Delegate Begay question about the number 2, babies born after 10/1/2020 that vital records or census office has yet to issue their CIB. We're working with the director of vital records if he can issue CIBs for these babies that I know they said they're behind in issuing CIBs, but we'll be working with the director on number 2. For number 3, yeah, we found out that some individuals share the same census number and vital records. They have to address that, why they assign the same census number for 2 different individuals. And of course, we're finding out some already got assisted, so we have to eliminate them. And so these, we're gonna be working closely with vital records again to verify which one has the legitimate CIB or correct CIB and which one they have to make corrections. They said they may assign the same CIB, but they can just add an alphabet like A to distinguish that they share the same number, but the assignment of alphabets A or B will differentiate the individuals. And for number 4 and number 6, that will be the next group of checks that we're planning to run. With the one with no CIB, it's just a matter of verifying it against the vital records database. And for the number 6, the work in progress, yeah, we will cut the application and just do the check run for the 2,756 applicants. And of course, for the number 5, this is very difficult to resolve because no contact info. There's no phone number or address. We can do a radio announcement again, informing those that applied but have not received hardship checks to call our office so that we can resolve this 3,610 wait list. And for Delegate Yellow Hair, a question on the worksheet. Yes, we will be able to provide the worksheet once we completed the reconciliation of the FMIS general ledger records against our bank statements. I know it's a big file. It's 300,000 checks, but we can do the reconciliation and provide the worksheet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kashina, thank you for that response. Madam Controller, Ms. Begay. With that, I'll go back to Budget and Finance Committee. Shinanta, Delegate Amber Canas-Bakrati, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Henyo. Thank you, Acting Controller, Ms. Begay, for your report. Is there a written report that was submitted to the committee? I am looking for that document as I'd like to submit that information to my district via email. So if I could get, just help me understand when this was submitted to the committee. The other item in terms of the 3,000 plus individuals, as a delegate, I haven't been provided any type of information on how to assist the Office of Controller to help contact these individuals. If your office can provide the delegates this listing, especially if they're in our district, we may be able to help in terms of coordinating and contacting. I do have one constituent who continues to ask if when their check is going to be delivered or received, and they have indicated that, you know, they're at the point where they say, when I call, no one answers and I can't leave a message, no place to send an email, and I'm just asking to know when I should be receiving my check. Thank you very much. And so I do have their contact information, and I would want to just make sure then that they're either going to receive a check or if they're one of the many who you're waiting for updated contact information. I do have their cell phone number and their CIB, which I think puts a burden on delegates as we're trying to make sure that our constituents are receiving this type of help. So if you could provide that update. I think I recalled again, and in the last Budget and Finance meeting that's on the record, the recommendation was to use the surplus to the small business applicants. And I remember disagreeing with a statement, you know, on how we're, what do you call that, supporting or we're giving incentives to those who were late to to the hardship application, but I'm concerned because there's still CIBs that need to be established, and that is the Navajo Nation government's responsibility through our 638 contract. And so we have to develop a way to assist those our citizens who are waiting on the government to take action. And so then the second part of my question is, the council did approve an Hatopli assistance program that was never fully developed by the executive. And so I asked at that last meeting if funding could be used to support our Hatoplis who were providing services, and for those that we lost during COVID. And I have not received a response or how that would be implemented in using the surplus of dollars. There's Navajo Nation documentation that was passed by the council, yet the application was never fully developed. And so what can we do in this time to redirect funding to help support our Hatoplis and others who have provided services on behalf of our Navajo people? Thank you, Chair and committee members.
Appreciate you guys for that question. With that, I'll defer this to next Vice Chair Smith.
Good morning, Chair Henio and committee members of the Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you for allowing me to ask some questions on behalf of the hardship. And thank you, Ms. Elizabeth Gay, Acting Controller, for the hard copy. I've got a hard copy in my hand. The question I have is, there is over 7,500 outstanding checks. And within that, I know that when there is a check issued, there's like a 90-day expiration date. And if these folks still have it, I'm sure that 90 days has expired. So if they go to their bank or any place to cash it, they're going to reject it. So we have over 7,500, an amount of 8 million. The 8,200,000 is quite a big amount of money, and in that funding, we are expected to revert this back by December 31st. However, your recommendation is to on any unspent monies for small business assistance. And the question is, I guess, to Legislative Council and DOJ, they're listening in. Is that possible? Because it takes time to drop legislation and go through the Navajo Nation Council and NAVI, and finally the final authority would be Navajo Nation Council, which would be required to have a special session. And I don't know if we can expedite that as quickly as possible. Those are the concerns that I see in this. And then on that last sentence, before in addition to the 7,500, it talks about the calculation of $2,707,681 deficit from the available balance this day. So does that mean there will be a deficit if you paid out every one of these individuals, even the babies that were born after October 1? There's 453 babies. Good for the families, good for us to have more children, future leaders, and we're helping them out at that point in time. I don't know if they'll be taken care of because we're already in December 7th, and we've got less than 2 weeks to address the situation. So time is of the essence, and I don't know if the vital records are listening in, if they could expedite that and get these newborns born after October 1st to be paid out, because the cost of diaper, formula, you name it, even going to the hospital for checkups and stuff like that. It's very expensive. If you have a child at this point in time, an infant, or babies at this time, it's very expensive. So Could the committee of budget and finance write a letter to them and say, hurry up and get these babies registered so that we can help them out? Because if they can show that their parents are Navajo and they are born of Navajo families, they're eligible. But it's just a fact of getting the CIB numbers out. I don't know if they can crank that out as fast, as quick as possible. I know this is not in your shop, Ms. Begay, but we're trying to look for the help of those who had applied for the request for this hardship too. So those are my two questions I have, and there's other ones that on like number 4, no copy of CIB. There's 1,185. I think the Navajo Nation Census Office, we're probably going to bombard them trying to get these information as soon as possible so that we could get these folks paid out. But the main issue is what I brought up on the last paragraph is the 7,500 checks. How are we going to divert that as quick as possible? Do we drop legislation and make an emergency legislation to help small business? I know that we want to spend this and not revert this back to the U.S. Treasury, but we want to do it in a fashion of being legal and not do anything illegal to get in a bind with paying back the U.S. Treasury on behalf of the hardship issue. So that's my question, Chair Henyu, and thank you, Budget and Finance Committee members and those that are listening on board. Good morning, the cat.
Again, Vice Chair Smith, we have a question. I'll defer back to Ms. Elizabeth Begay. You would provide a response.
Chair Henyo.
After I defer back from Madam Controller, or Shanada, go ahead.
Okay. Chair Henyo, with your permission, this is Edmund Yazi. Good morning, calling from my house here in Coolidge. I heard the report. Thank you, committee members and staff that are online. Just a real quick question, comment to our controller. Madam Controller, thank you for your report. I just need your help, Madam Controller. I've emailed and left message for Mr. Jeremy Ben through chapter reference to the CARES Act funds hardship is still waiting for their payment on their truck that they ordered from Aloy's Dodge. And I know I brought this up 2 months ago, and I saw the agenda, and I want to thank the staff for sending that out to the delegates. So I thought I'll just give this a shot. Pleading for almost 2 months now. Could we take care of that, please, for the people, for the voting members, for the officials, and for the root chapter? Ms. Bennett is constantly asking me to help, and so I'm surprised that they haven't lost a truck. But please, Madam Controller, I'm asking for help on this. That's all I have, Chair, and committee members and everyone that's listening. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanada. Delegate Edmund Yazzie. With that, we'll defer back to Ms. Elizabeth Begay for a response.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For Delegate Yazzie's question, we received the email, and I'm working with Jeremy Ben to address that, and we'll get back to you on that as soon as after this BNF meeting. And question by Delegate Crotty on the 3,610 wait list with no contact information. Yes, we will give the list to the BNF committee members so you can help us if you can find them, because we really need to help them and assist them with the hardship. And I will work on that personally to give you all the list, the 3,610. And the question on the concern on the unexpended will be going just to small business. There were a lot of suggestions, if you will, on the unexpended CARES fund. There's a suggestion to give it to students hardship program, as well as to Navajo Nation employees as a special duty pay. And we can consider, of course, Delegate Crotty's recommendation for providers, specifically providers, healthcare providers, and those that lost their lives during the COVID. It's just my concern. It needs an application process for this, and we're running out of time. The same issue with the student hardship assistance. They need to do an application as well. And with the small business grant that was recommended here, they already had the applications in place. They were the one that were defunded under the CARES fund, so that can easily be disbursed. And of course, there's a question of brought by Vice Chair Smith. It cannot be done without a Navajo Nation Council resolution. So we need to introduce emergency legislation because it involves reallocation. And with the help of DOJ and Legislative Council, we be able to draft the emergency legislation before the CARES Fund expiration date. It's just we're still working on the hardship applicants. That's why we haven't worked on that. But if we can leave the amount blank, meaning any unexpended CARES Fund monies should go to whatever approved by the Navajo Nation Council, then maybe we can do that before the expiration of the CARES. And for the vital records, we recognize they need help. If the Budget and Finance Committee can produce a directive to Vital Records to issue CIB for the 453 babies, then maybe they can make that as a priority so we can assist the parents of the 453 babies. For the number 4, with no copy of CIB attached to the application, we can just verify the CIB that they put on their application against the vital records statistics so that we can resolve that issue and move forward with processing the checks for them, as long as they're listed on that vital records database. And I believe I answered all the questions, Mr. Chair.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Begay, Madam Controller, for your response. Back to the Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions, comments?
Chairman, this is Delegate Crotty with a question.
Okay. Oh, also, Shannon, the email on the hard copy that was it was emailed to the committee this morning at 10:11 a.m. The written report from the OOC. Others, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the written document. I did receive it. Thank you, Ms. Nakai, Shade, and delegates for forwarding that out. I will, I think, Chair, we should send this out to all of the 24th Navajo Nation Council delegates. But I'll leave that up to your discretion. I'm going back to the conversation on what to do with the remaining funding. I do see that there's legislation to request for burial assistance. And I received the notice that the burial assistance had ran out of funding. I think those are areas that we should look at. And I thought the committee, we had asked the controller to send out the maximum amount, the $500 or $1,500 amount, and then we would use the Navajo fiscal relief hardship to bump up or balance out how much funding was given out during hardship. I don't recall if Madam Acting Controller Begay mentioned it, what the exact amount is. Let me pull that up. And what is the room for conversation? 2 weeks ago, we provided some suggestions. And if the intent is just to stalemate it and go to the business applicant, I'm just concerned with that type of approach, considering the committee asked for other options. And just reviewing from the work session last week on, I don't really see in terms of how some of these fundings are being compromised and submitted out to the communities when the committee, what I'm looking for is action when the committee provides some type of guidance. Ms. Begay, please let me know then what you or your team discovered and how we move forward, rather than just suggesting the funding go to the business applicants. Thank you.
Chair Genio, this is Peggy. May I ask a question?
Okay, thank you, for your question. And then right now, Peggy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Genio. Maybe the Office of the Controller can provide the committee information about what the time frame looks like after December 31st. When is the final closeout for these funds? That's my question.
Okay, thank you for that question. I'll defer back to Madam Controller, Ms. Begay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members, Delegate Crotty's question. Yeah, we started giving out 1,500 for adult and 500 for minor for the hardship too. So that was the checks that we issued just last month. We issued 13,703 checks, and each adult received 1,500 and the minor received 500. And for the other programs, we can do a research if there's burial assistance application already available for, then we can put that and provide recommendations on what programs that we're recommending to get the unexpended CARES fund. It's just that the small business already had an application in place. That's why we thought that will be the quickest way to expend the money. And in answering Peggy's question, we have 15 days after the end of the quarter, which is December 31st. So that's January 15, 2022, to close out the CARES fund. So everything must be reported as expended. And of course, we're still trying to work with our external auditors on the outstanding checks, because right now in our books, it's already expense. We already recorded it as an expense because we issued the checks. It's just in our bank statements, the money's still there because the checks has not cash. But we're working with them how long we can keep the expense in our books. Or the other alternative is to just entertain the request from the other programs, such as now we have the burial assistance and the small business and the scholarships, how to entertain their request, but we will just be making recommendations. The council has to do the final approval on how to expend the unspent CARES fund. Mr. Chair.
I guess, thank you for that response. Ms. Begay. I'll from back to the committee, Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions, comments? I don't know. Yeah, I'll call for the question to accept the report.
Chairman.
I believe we'll have this is an ongoing report. So therefore, at the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting, we should be getting another updated report from the Budget and Finance Committee. So this is an ongoing until we get it closed out, that we want to hear from the Controller's Office as far as what's happening at each committee meeting. So we'll be on the agenda again at the next committee meeting. With this, I think I heard Shinanta Delegate Elmer P. Begay and also Shinanta Delegate Odoso. Delegate Elmer P. Begay, you have the floor.
Okay, Chair, thank you for that. I got a call from Delegate K. Allen McGay. He said he's trying to get a hold of you to get on there. He has a question, Nika, so he's been calling me. So I'm not sure if he's on the line. I told him to get on the line, though. It is, yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that notification and prior warning. So thank you. So with that, Delegate Odoso, Ado Che, Delegate Keon Jr., are you on the line? Delegate Keon Begay Jr. Okay, we'll wait till he's also on the line. Che, Delegate Odoso,
Yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. The report that is really concerning is that the possible returning about $8 million back to the federal government. And I guess one recommendation is we have students that are going to the universities across the United States, Navajo students, and especially the seniors and the ones that are finishing out their junior years and the ones that are pursuing their master's degree and the ones that are in the doctoral program. They are struggling financially, and especially I have a couple of them asking for help because NAU, ASU is coming to an end, and before they register, they have to pay a certain amount of their bills off, and they're looking for any other way to try to pay for their college education. And maybe that's a route that we could try to infuse these monies into our students that are pursuing their education at the level of they're completing their junior year, they're completing or they're in their senior year, or their master's program, or their doctoral program. But a lot of them, they are struggling at this time. So that's just one recommendation, to infuse dollars, the possible $8 million that's left. And I know there's university students around that is around the nation that could definitely help that. The other recommendation is to send another $200 to our Navajo elders. maybe 50, 55 years on up, maybe another, $500 or something. I don't know. But that way you guys could expend these dollars a lot sooner. Those are just my recommendations. Yeah.
Kasi gana che. Also, Delegate Key Allen Begay Jr. Are you on the line? With that, I'll defer back to Madam Controller, Ms. Elizabeth Begay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Delegate Ottoso's recommendation for student hardships. That's one of the recommendations that we received. It's just we need an application process for that. And I believe Ms. Rose Graham has a recommendation how to address that as well. And for the Navajo elders to give them additional $200 or $500, that can be easily done because we already have their date of birth. We just need to calculate that. We already have them in the system. That's another alternative that can be handled right away, if you will. But again, all these recommendations must be included in the emergency legislation that has to be drafted. And I will work with the DOJ and the Legislative Council to incorporate all these suggestions, how to expend the unexpended CARES fund before the end of December. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate Ms. Begay for that response. Budget and Finance Committee members, any further questions? If not, we'll move to accept the report. If there are no further questions.
Eugene So.
Delegate Eugene So.
I fell off the saddle for a while. I got back on the horse now. In regards to the CARES Act, he's now legislation, the one we passed at a time. That's my question.
Delegate Eugene So, which legislation are you referring to?
The second round of the CARES Act, the Hanahan State. I just heard that there are some more still left in there. Emergency legislation.
What we'll do is we'll send the controller's report to all the council, 24th Navajo Nation Council. So you'll be able to take a look at what we're talking about on the allocations again. And the second round of the hardship apply the Ilaya but the problem is there's some funds that emergency legislation to amend the legislation that authorized the CARES expenditure.
Yeah, that was my question. There was a second round of CARES Act legislation not we forwarded to the president, and they were working on it when they hired some people at the chapter level, and then that's what I thought that's what they were working on, the last part of the funds with regards to the CARES Act. I thought that's what we did the last time we had the last portion of the CARES Act funds to give it to back to the hardship as a hardship check, second round. Thank you.
Chair Henio, this is Peggy.
Okay. Agustin thank you for your question. Maybe Peggy can help. Peggy?
Chair Genio, I've already forwarded the report that the controller provided this morning. At the same time as the Budget and Finance Committee received their report, I sent it out to the 24 council. As far as the other legislation, I really haven't kept track of where it's at and all. Maybe controller might have some information on that.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. With that, Ms. Begay, would you have a response?
I believe they may be talking about the ARPA hardship, the 207 million that's being proposed together with the infrastructure projects, and that from the ARPA budget, from that 2 billion. But that's what my understanding is, that there's going to be a legislation that will be dropped for the hardship ARPA and the infrastructure projects. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Begay, for that response. Back to the committee, Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions, comments?
Chair, I showed it.
Oh, Shinanda, Delegate Eugene So?
Last year, not just the beginning of the year, when all the funds came back in from NTUA, I think it was other places that was never used, that CARES, and we put another legislation on it for a second time round for all those that never applied for it, and all those that were waiting. There's some waiting list, and that one. So that's the second time resolution that we passed on, and I know there was about 3 or 4 co-sponsors on that legislation, and it was forward after it was signed right away. The president or what they start pushing it where the chapter got some people to work on it, and there are people that are working on it to get those checks done by the end of this year or the first part of January. That's what I understood on that legislation. I can't remember the resolution number, but that's what we had. I'm not talking about the ARPA fund, aided by history. So the one that came back in, that never used projects, especially NTUA and others, that just put it back into the CARES Act, and that we use that into the hardship checks number 2. Aided by I don't know if anybody understands that, but they were already working in there for these. They hired some people. I know in each chapter, Trinity Agency, they hired some people down there. They went to working on that. Thank you.
Shinanda, as the report from the controller, as far as the second run of the hardship, the ones that never got paid the first time around, AD reporting. And Shinanda, if you could check your email, the report is in written format.
Oh, I've got that one, yeah.
And there's a balance left over after the second round of hardship was paid out. The next question is another but there's a balance, and that's what we're talking about. And December 30th is just around the corner. And so trying to decide, okay, do we need to do emergency legislation to amend that resolution that we passed? Because otherwise we might end up having to send that money back if it's unexpended.
Thank you. I thought it won't be anything that's going to be left out. We divide it among everybody. But how about this case? Thank you.
For being on the call. And for the record, Delegate Eugene So is on the call, Ramona. With this, any further questions or comments? Budget and Finance Committee for this report. Let's call for the question to accept the report. Ramona, if you would lead us in a roll call vote.
Yes, Chairman, roll call vote for receiving the report. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Vice Chair Smith sent me a note. He said he votes green.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth Bakrati, how do you vote?
This is Delegate Amber Keenan-Spot-Carty. I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Amber Kenneth Bakrati votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green via text. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, we have 5 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing. Chairman not voting. Chairman?
Kashina, thank you for that roll call vote. We do have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Thank you, Ms. Begay, for providing this report to us. Next item on our agenda, item B. Dominic Bial, are you on the call with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you for being on the call, and good morning. And you have the floor for the report.
Thank you, Chair Henio, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. The presentation for this morning will be an oral verbal report because I didn't get the agenda until yesterday. I didn't have time to do a write-up document providing any update from our last meeting on this subject. So therefore, my presentation will be brief. At the last meeting, Budget and Finance Committee in November, recall I did a short paper talking first of all about how our leadership, including the branch chiefs and of course President Nez, was recommending that we consider a 2-year budgeting process. And the main reason for that is our current annual budgeting process takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of use of resources because we start typically in June and run through September, which is about 4 months of the regular fiscal year. Therefore, 1/3 of the fiscal year is work done on the budget. And that includes working at the department, division, and then branch levels, and then with the oversight committees, and then finally, ultimately, with the council and then president's final action, typically in late September. So that was the primary concern based on my understanding being involved in the budget process annually for a number of years. So the report I provided is one of the source documents that we were able to find was from 2017. And that is from the Federal Congressional Research Service, which provided a document entitled Biannual Budgeting, Issues, Options, and Actions. So again, it was a report from 2017, which is the latest we were able to find, at least at that time. And that's where I reported that, according to this report, 19 states, that's states in the United States, use forms of 2-year budgeting, and the other 31 states use the annual budgeting process. Now, most 2-year budget processes are enactments of 2 budgets for the coming 2-year period. For example, for Navajo, there would be 1 budget resolution approving budgets for FY23 and 24. Now, the Navajo Nation Council would meet in formal budget session every 2 years, not every single year. Now, another way to do it, we found, is looking at the state of Wyoming. The state of Wyoming doesn't do annual budgets. They do a budget for the entire 2-year period. So as an example, for us, Navajo, we would do an annual budget for fiscal year 23. And let's say we have a program with a $1 million budget. We would do 2 budgets typically for $1 million apiece, assuming there's no reductions or increases in the revenue levels and the planning allocations. Okay, but the Wyoming model, as we understand it, would be for the 2 years together. So in the example I'm citing, 1 million, it would be a $2 million budget for both years. And that would require council to approve that budget, and then the various budget hearings and so on that go along with it. Now, one of the drawbacks, again, I mentioned in the prior document that I gave, is because our revenue or our budgets are based on revenue projections, it's hard to project beyond the upcoming year, because that's anywhere from 16 to 18 months in advance. And typically, therefore, most governments that tried to do the 2-year budgeting found that they had to do a lot of amendments and revisions because the revenue forecast would change. It would fluctuate, either going up and down depending on the circumstances and situation. So that's one of the major drawbacks about this particular process. But anyway, again, OMB is continuing to research and look at the 2-year budgeting process and see how some of the states do it. And as I said, Wyoming is one of the interesting ones because they don't do annual budgets. They do a 2-year budget completely. So that's one model that we can take a look at and see how they do it, how it works, and if there's any flaws or weaknesses or problems with that effort. So, Mr. Chair, committee members, that's my update report in oral form at this point. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bial, for that report. Is there a motion to accept the report? Motion by Vice Chair Smith.
Sure, question.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Vice Chair Smith. Is there a second to accept?
Delegate Yellowhair. Delegate Yellowhair.
Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. So we do have a motion and a second to accept the report. Budget and Finance Committee members, is there any questions or comments?
Chair, just Delegate Begay.
Delegate Elmer P. Begay, you have the floor.
Chair, good morning. Nana, I know that the Budget and Finance Committee and then people are on the line. I know Mr. Bial, for that report that you gave us on 2-year budget formulation that we wanted to impose by the president. So, and regarding that, so the reasoning is to eliminate something that to have a lot of planning that is put in place within 1 year. So 2 years, it's going to be set up like that. So that's what the annual budget, comprehensive budget that we have every year. So regarding that, so any like IDC that those IDC, and any other, is it going to be changing, or how do we know? Is it going to be already been 2 years to set the rates? On the if we can go into 2 years planning for budget, so we have to do a 2 years almost projection. So right now we know that the projection is almost the same each year. So is there any other, like right now we're talking about there's some that for example right now if we look at county budget formulation, Navajo County, they're already anticipating that the Cholla power plant will be shutting down in 2024. So they already made a plan. So they are imposing tax so they can get some their county staff to be in place, to be some of these the county staff that they get funding from these Cholla power plants. They already imposed it that they put a budget increase or the tax increase with a voting referendum vote. So it passed it. So right now we know how do we going to start preparing for that. If we're going to see some deficit and maybe we're looking at, I'm looking at these the coal that we have. I know it's going to be shutting down, and I'm not sure what are we looking at. What is your office looking at that's going to be a major shutting down because of you know that everybody's going into like renewables energies that they're looking into it. We haven't started preparing for that, and at the same time these batteries, people that are in the storage of the batteries, they're increasing it and they're getting more stronger. Like we don't have to use a generator right now. We have a lot of cordless tools now, which is a lot faster and a lot stronger now. It can last longer too. They're already in there. Because I think we haven't done anything, so people are buying stocks more into the battery part of it. Those stocks, they're buying that. We haven't even started prepared as Navajo Nation for 2 years. What kind of or what are we looking at that we need to start doing this to start preparing for the 2-year deficit? That will be my question, Henio. Thank you.
Delegate MRP Brigade. Defer back to Mr. Bial.
Thank you, Chair Henio and members of the committee. Delegate Begay raises some excellent questions. For example, IDC. The IDC agreement, the IDC rate that's used is done on an annual basis. So that's what we'll have to take a look at as he's asking. How would we do it for a 2-year period? Would it be a 2-year annual IDC rate? Or would we have to stay with an annual rate, but make an adjustment for year 2 if it's needed, if the rate should change. So that's a good example of how in my report I was saying that 2-year budgeting, as done by some of the states and other entities, they do run into the situation. So our research will be looking at how they're doing it and how they dealt with this, how they handled this particular matter. His other comment was on the revenue projections, because again, as I said, it fluctuates. Currently, the revenue projection that the controller issued for the fiscal year 22 budget, it has numbers there for fiscal year 23 and 24, and they're identical at 130.1 million. But we know by experience, when you look at the actual sources of revenue, as Delegate Begay is saying, taxes, gas, oil, coal, etc., all of those areas, it fluctuates depending on the market, the industry, and so forth. So when we go to 2-year budget, if we do that, the second year would be subject to further revision adjustment as may be necessary. So again, looking at these other states who have done this and are doing this, that would be part of the question, to see how they did it, how they dealt with it, and how it's handled. But anyway, I just wanted to say that those are good questions by Delegate Begay, and those are exactly areas that we need to be looking at when we consider whether to go forward with the 2-year budgeting process and in what form or fashion. Mr. Chair, that's my answer at this point. Thank you.
Mr. BL, for your response. Back to the Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions, comments?
Delegate
Yellow here too.
Delegate Elmer P. Begay, you have the floor.
Hey, good morning, I have a question. Thank you for the response, Mr. Bial. I appreciate that. You've given us a good report too, give us a lot of insight and a lot of something to think about how the nation is going to be. So with that, it seems like right now we're looking at you, your department, Office of Management and Budget. At the same time, you know that we know that you've been with the nation for a long time, and you have a lot of experience going through a lot, through how the nation struggled and how you got back on and came back on its feet and to move on again, and with all these experience you have with your department financing. But right now, my question is to the nation, I guess, or to all the leadership. Right now, we have a pro tem controller, and understanding that I'm not sure at the beginning there, she doesn't have that much experience about financing regarding being a controller, and to have a CPA, the credibility, and then understand that she's not going to be here for a longer time. So I think we need the nation would need a permanent, another a controller that has a lot of experience with a CPA and have that kind of a credibility to help look at the vision, the experience, or the planning that we're going to have. What's the planning do they have? What kind of recommendation and planning does the controller have right now? See that because if she's not going to be there for the next how many more months, and I don't know who's going to be there. So I think we would need OC and then O and B and finance to work together to have that kind of vision to work on it. Something that's going to be like 2 years ahead of to make those kind of plans. So it's just a little concern that I have. Maybe it's not really like that, but it's the way we kind of I look at it right now today, Mr. Bial. So other members of the Budget Finance Committee, that will be my concern. Share it with you, Chair.
Delegate Elmer PVG for your questions. Delegate Jimmy Yell here.
Hello, Yate Chairman, Yate, my colleagues of the committee. As far as I understand that 2 years contract with any public law not 3638, Mr. Bial, I don't know if you remember, there's once was like that before, 2 years contract. Because the second year, it was only collecting dust in Washington, D.C., don't do nothing. There is a good to do is every 2 years better. Mr. Bial way back. So other Indian tribe too, some try to do it every year, but the second year, the Congress did not do anything. They don't even do the budgets. That was the issue, but it was done before like that, 2 years. And then plus indirect costs won't even affect anything. 2 years, indirect costs is always 1 year behind schedule too. There's no affection. About this. So in the 2 years and that is budget all year. Money I save in the store what and then going to be hard to cut the majority of the Indian tribe was at that. They are so international about the what about this is not on. That's important. Chairman.
Delegate Jimmy Yell here. With that, back to Mr. Bial for a response.
Thank you, Chair Henio, members of the committee. The comments by Delegate Yellow Hair are good. He brought up Public Law 93-638. Of course, those are federal funds. So by bringing that up, see, he introduces another factor that needs to be considered when we move, or if we move to a 2-year budgeting cycle. How will the external fund grants contracts be budgeted? How will they be administered? Will it require any changes in our processes and so on and so forth? So that's another side to look at. And again, it would be part of our research and looking at how these other entities who have 2-year budgeting cycles to see how they've done it and how they are doing it and how they overcame any issues involved in this particular process. So, members of the committee, as Delegate Yellowhair is pointing out, another factor that needs to be considered is the external fund budgeting and how that might be affected or impacted by a 2-year budgeting cycle if Navajo chooses to go that way. Mr. Chair.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for that response. With that, any further questions, comments? Budget and Finance Committee? Then I call for the question. Okay, hold on here. If there's no further questions or comments from the committee, Shinada, Delegate Odo Sosche.
Yeah, kudo nama ade ba na na ki Dominic Bial. Yeah. I was sort of trying to chime in to hear Western Agency's voice. Sounds like I'm not too sure if our representatives on the call serve as the Western Agency Caucus, the chairman for the Western Agency Caucus, and this is something that's very important, and it's the reason why I wanted to chime in. And one of my, I guess, a question that I would like to pose to Dominic is that, what if we know that there's going to be there's going to be a learning curve in the 2-year budgeting cycle, and getting these, but what about keeping the budget cycle the same, but instead of having these agreements, you have this 3-branch chiefs agreement that's not even part of Title 12. Then, and it's already determined what branch is getting what, but by law it doesn't state that. I thought executive branch takes their share, legislative branch takes their share, and the judicial branch already says they're going to take this much. I thought because the council is an appropriator. The appropriator is not the judicial branch or the executive branch. Why don't we change Title 12 to a percentage rate as my recommendation, and we gave us we look at the Navajo Nation budget, what was allocated for the past 10 years, and transfer those numbers to a percentage ratio determined based off of what the total amount was budgeted. So as we get this percentage ratio, that ratio is determined, is set, and put into law. So that percentage ratio is already determined for the executive branch, for the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. If additional funds need to be adjusted for additional services, say the program needs additional money, they could go to the general fund, the UUFB, to request for funds. Because I need the IDC agreement and these federal contracts will be getting in the way. It's like a whole Navajo Nation financial overhaul on our budgeting system, and it's going to affect our how the nation conducts business. I don't think it's going to say tomorrow. We're going to have to really sit down and figure out how we're going to carry this, and how what do you call those CRs will be affected also. These continuous resolutions that I believe last year we had 2 years ago we had a continuous resolution, and we had some issues with program funds, hiring issue. So those are just some of my my response and my thought for them to this town, Mr. Bial. I don't care. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you for your recommendations and comments. Delegate Odoso. Any further questions, comments from the committee, Budget and Finance Committee?
Antonio, this is Delegate Crotty with a question.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just asking Mr. Bial, were you able to submit a report to the committee? And if so, at what time? My concern is, Chair, I appreciate that we add this onto the agenda, as it's an ongoing issue. If I recall, back in 2019, I think President Nez sent a memo attachment to the budget in asking for a 2-year budget, but we really haven't seen. It's my understanding that there was in the past possibly funding made available to a consultant to look at all of these issues. Transitioning to a 2-year budget, it will take a lot of technical considerations and also the capacity. I'm looking at OMB's current vacancies, and there's a critical shortage in our OMB positions. I'm assuming that's also at OOC, and I do think that we should try to streamline the budgeting process, but there's also issues that need to be addressed as we experienced this last budget season when Navajo Nation laws are not being complied with. So I could see the benefit of moving to a 2-year, but how does this committee make sure that Navajo Nation laws are complied with? Something as simple as what's fixed costs, and then what were programs allowed to budget. And so we would need to make sure that there's this internal system that is set up to make sure that the policies and laws are in fact being adhered to. And I think in terms of Navajo Nation, our policy is not to go into a deficit. And so I think that's also why we need a little bit more information on a forecast on what does it take to do a 2-year budget, and what are areas then that this committee can move forward in recommendations on to expedite the process. Programs are already getting ready for next year's budget. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, but there's a lot of last minute decision making. And so I think if there was a consultant that was hired on, I would like to see that report, or how we move forward in like building up an institutional historical documentation on how we're moving forward with this 2-year and addressing the chronic vacancies in our OMB and OOC. Thank you, Chair.
Sheena Kianas, for your question. Back to Mr. Biel for response.
Thank you, Chair Henio, members of the committee. Speaking to Delegate Crotty's comments. In the past, we did engage a consulting firm to do a first review and to make some recommendations at the time on the budget policies manual. And they did that work and finished it. And that's been the document that we've been working on internally to further refine and make ready for eventual consideration by the committees and ultimately probably the Navajo Nation Council. But that did not include the 2-year budgeting cycle. It was other parts of the budgeting process. And currently there's a condition of appropriation to finish that proposed budget policies manual by the end of the second quarter and provide that to DOJ. So we're working to accommodate that particular COA. And Delegate Crotty's other comments regarding fixed costs and the applicability of other policies, laws, and whether they're being complied with. And then the forecasting model, as we explained, or I explained earlier, and as Delegate Begay raised as well, it's like the controller looking forward 2 years in advance as opposed to 1, and trying to determine what is a good number to use as far as a projection, as far as estimates for budgeting processes. So that's an activity, yes, that needs to be probably improved. And again, our office will be looking at that, and ultimately we'll come out with some findings, at which point then we can work with the controller's office and or I'm thinking maybe DOJ, of course, the president's office. And I was thinking the Division of Economic Development recently hired an economist for the first time in a long time. So that person will be looking at the Navajo economy. And that's where some of the factors that Delegate Begay raised about the prices of gas, oil, coal, and other areas would be affected. He mentioned Cholla Power Plant and others, is that they would look at that. So anyway, we would probably next week, not next week, but next month rather, we would probably form an internal work group or team to work together on this proposed 2-year budgeting model, or whatever can be done to simply refine and streamline our current budgeting process. There's probably ways that it could be done to reduce the time, amount, and effort that goes into it, and yet makes it better. Mr. Chair, that's my response at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Bial, for your response. Back to the Budget and Finance Committee, Shenandoah. Any further questions, comments?
Chair Henya, this is Delegate Crowdy.
Shenandoah, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And so I understand this is going to take a lot of discussion. We do know that our set-asides are set to be budgeted for every year. The council and this committee may consider to simply, by percentage, allocate funding to the different departments or a set amount. And because I think the point of the 2-year budget plan is just to make future decisions on how to build up capacity and how to deal with some of the vacancies in the programming. And so I'm looking at the current set-asides. There is percentages, so that gives us a variance every year. But we could consider in terms of just determining, similar to what we did to the permanent trust fund, that we would set aside X amount of dollars to cover the cost, whether or not we had a good or bad year when it comes to collecting our revenue. And so I'm just trying to think in terms of the most simplistic way, and when going through the appropriation process through our state and through our Congress, we spend a lot of time on the budget. We actually spend a lot of time on different funding proposals. And so I think if we can move beyond maybe having to review all of the budget forms, I know that's why I want to see improvements in the internal process, and I'm concerned with the vacancies at OMB because it's on OMB staff to develop and process these. If we could have a better system, then it wouldn't be the committees that have to go through every line to make sure first it's accurate, it's abiding by Navajo Nation law, and we could just, if we're concerned about like promotional items, we could do like a cap, like only 2% of your budget can be used towards promotional items. I'm thinking if we could think about more policy solutions so we could move through the budgeting process because what we have is a limited number of accountants, a limited number of folks who are involved in this process, and they spend a lot of time on our internal budgeting process rather than spending the dollars, right? We need to shift our concern on getting them to spend the money, whether it's federal dollars, whether it's Navajo Nation dollars, whether it's appropriately making sure these ARPA dollars are funded. And that's my concern as we move forward with these other legislations, that we're we're approving spending packages, but we're not building up our financial system like the OC, OMB. And I know that's been controversial, but I'm concerned that we are putting a lot of pressure on our OMB staff and not giving them the support that they need, the salaries that it takes, and they're in a temporary space. So how is the Navajo Nation going to make sure that we're taking care of our own financial folks to help move along this nation and to make sure these things are being processed? So those are areas that I think we could compromise or start thinking about if there's budgets that really we don't move money around. Sometimes delegates will dig into certain budgets and move money around. But for the most part, these budgets are moving forward. You know, there's chronic programs like Veterans Department or, you know, if you know, executive office or legislative. There's areas that I think that historically we've have re-examined, but there's other budgets that just move forward, and what we're just looking for is how do we support them more with their unmet needs. So if we could just do that and start letting some of these budgets go by consent or letting them know how much they'll have, I think that would be helpful. So thank you, Chair and committee members.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for your recommendations, Ashwin and Tahoe. And defer back to Mr. Bial for a response.
Thank you, Chair Henio. Members of the committee, replying to Delegate Crotty and some of her thoughts and ideas about streamlining
Yeah, I know.
and reducing.
Yeah,
And
that's really true. I think they're just, it's their, you know, they're obligated to it.
Okay, thank you for your commentary. If you can put yourself on mute, Ms. Burnside, we appreciate it. And for your comments also, Mr. Bial.
Okay, continuing on to responding to Delegate Crotty. I was saying that her ideas, recommendation, thoughts about further streamlining the process, potentially using percentages similar to the way the set-asides are done, and then reducing a lot of the object codes and line items in the budget packets right now, and then focusing more on performance and spending patterns, ensuring that the funds are spent for the purposes they're budgeted for, and maybe even doing budgets by consent, assuming that they've been thoroughly reviewed and are ready to go. Yes, those are all ideas that are worthy of consideration. So I appreciate her thoughts and comments about that. And as I said earlier, one of the ideas we're going to be looking at too is going more electronic, reducing the budget packets that are necessary, and in an effort to shorten and make the budgeting process itself actually more simple and more basic and easier to do. I think in prior discussions I mentioned as an example choose the federal government. As we know, the federal government is huge. But the budget packet, the green book that you've seen, is probably only about 150 pages. And billions of dollars of budgets are reflected in the green book. And it's not line item, object code. If it was, it'll be a 1 million page document. So all of the budgets are maintained at the department level, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Commerce, etc. So the federal model, they use a simple budgeting process that goes to the Congress, the House and the Senate, to be voted on as far as appropriations go. Currently, obviously they have their drawbacks because the federal government at the moment, and it's been the pattern for 20 years now, most budgets aren't enacted on October 1st. That's why there's constant continuing resolutions. And that's not good. Our own experience in last year revealed that again, that that's not what we want to be doing. But my point is just to show that there's ways to shorten the budget packets that go before council. And we'll be taking a look at that as to how to do that. Again, we would have to work with Controller's Office because they're the ones who use the current budgets for their accounting and payments and reporting processes. And that's how the budgeting process initially started 50, 60 years ago. And it's simply been maintained and continued over all that time. But our budget, our government has grown 2 or 3 times during that time period. So now it's time to take a closer look, as Delegate Crotty is suggesting, on how to refine and revise and shorten and streamline our processes to make it more adaptable and more, more better for all of us, all the users, as well as for the public for that matter, so that they can better understand the budgets that our government is proposing and then adopting and then using. Mr. Chair, that's my response at this point. Again, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that response, Mr. Bial. Back to the committee, Budget and Finance Committee. Any further questions, comments, or should we move to accept the report? If not, we'll go to accepting the report, call for the question. Ramona, if you would roll call vote.
Chairman, roll call vote for accepting the report. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I'll vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth Spot Crotty, how do you vote?
Shada, this is Delegate Crotty. I'll vote green. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadeja. Honorable Amber Kenneth Spot Crotty votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green via text. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
Should I vote green?
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, chairman not voting, and 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Kashina, thank you for that roll call vote. 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. With that, we have accepted the report, and thank you, Mr. Bial, for providing that report, the report to the committee here.
Thank you.
Kashina, and so with that, let's move down on the agenda here. Next item on our agenda is new business. Old business, there's none. New business 7A, Station 240-21. And with this, Shinanda, Delegate Pernell Halona, are you on the call?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Yes, I am.
Gashina, thank you for being on the call. And with that, Peggy, if you would read the legislation into the record.
This is legislation number 0240-21. It's a proposed Navajo Nation Council resolution assigned to Resources and Development Committee, Thence Budget and Finance Committee. Budget and Finance Committee has final authority on this legislation. 24th Navajo Nation Council, 3rd year, 2021, introduced by Pernell Halona, Tracking number 0240-21, an action relating to resources and development and budget and finance committees. Approving a change in Exhibit D to resolution number CAP 3518 for Coyote Canyon chapter by deleting certain projects and purchases and approving the use of funds for the purchase of new equipment and for the chapter parking lot / landscape project instead. You have the exhibits that are referenced in the legislation. The Internet public review document shows that there were no comments made. The Resources and Development Committee has a due pass with no amendments. They have their committee report and their vote tally sheet. Chair Henyo.
Thank you, Shane, for that reading. Committee members, is there a motion to accept this list?
Motion, Delegate Crotty.
Motion by Shananta, Delegate Antonescu-Crotty. Is there a second?
Delegate Yellow Hair.
Thank you, Shane. So we do have a motion and a second with this. With that, committee members, are there any questions, comments regarding this legislation? If there are no questions or comments regarding the legislation, we'll call for the question. Ramona, you would lead us on a roll call vote.
Chairman, roll call vote on legislation number 0240-21. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Canes-Crotty, how do you vote? Honorable Amber Canes-Crotty, how do you vote? Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Shada, this is Delegate Crotty. I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Amber Canes-Crotty votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, chairman not voting, and 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Kashina Kela, thank you for that. Roll call vote, 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. With that, moving forward.
Well, thank you very much, committee members. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Kashina, thank you, Ms. Delegate Halona. With that, let's move forward to next legislation. Chairman Daniel So, are you on the call? Chairman Daniel So. Chairman Daniel So, first call. Chairman Daniel So, second call.
Chair Hideo?
Yes.
Good morning. This is Michelle with Department of Health. I just sent Chair So a text. He is currently on another call with Pueblo Plantado Healthcare Facility Planning Committee meeting, so he'll probably be getting on in a little bit. So give him maybe a minute or two.
Chairman Daniel So, third and final call. Okay, let's move forward to the next legislation. Legislation 244-21. Again, Chairman Daniel So. Or Delegate Edison J. Wanika. Chairman Daniel So or Delegate Edison J. Wanika.
Chairman Daniel So, first call. Delegate Edison J. Winika, first call. Chairman Daniel So, second call. Delegate Edison J. Winika, second call. And Chairman Daniel So, third final call. Delegate Edison J. Winika, third and final call.
Chairman Haniel,
No sponsor for legislation 244-21. With that, we are at the end of our agenda. Delegate Pernell Halona.
oh yeah, Chairman Haniel, I was just going to tell you that Mr. Renika is chairing a meeting over here, a HES committee meeting in Titas Bas, and he said to go ahead and move it to the next legislation, to the next meeting.
Thank you, Shinanda. Delegate Halona, for that information.
Thank you.
With that, Shinanda, Budget and Finance Committee. Number 8, close the session. Written announcements, adjournment.
She reviews all documents as well.
Chair Henning.
Motion to adjourn, Delegate Crotty.
Shinanda.
I'll second.
That's by Crotty. Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yeah, yellow hair.
Shinanda, Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. Motion, second, so motion. With that, we do have a motion, second to adjourn. Peggy?
Okay, yeah, it's me again. There is written announcements that I sent forward to the committee about the RPAC meetings. The agenda is included with the memo that I sent forward this morning. The location of the meetings are on the agenda. So if you need additional information, just email me and I can give that to you regarding the meetings on Thursday and Friday this week. And then also the announcement about the indirect cost from the OMB. The committee should read that memo from Cordell. I would recommend it because it tells about the rates for this year. Thank you.
Shinanda, Peggy, for that information. Shinanda, Budget and Finance Committee members. I did receive that email. So with that, a lot of information. With that, we do have a motion, second to adjourn. If there's no other, Ramona, if you would lead us to a vote to adjourn.
Sure, Chairman. Roll call vote on motion to adjourn. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote? Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Crotty, how do you vote?
Shut it. This is Delegate Crotty. I'll vote green. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadeja. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Crotty votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Okay. Delegate Brown votes in favor. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Elmer P. Begay, how do you vote? Chairman, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 0 opposing, chairman not voting, and 1 member not voting. Chairman?
Delegate voting green.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Elmer P. Begay votes green. Chairman, so the roll call vote is 5 members in favor, 0 opposing, and chairman not voting. Chairman?
Christina Hiela, thank you for that roll call vote. 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. We're hereby adjourned at 12:22 p.m. And also for the record, Ramona, Vice Chair Smith is here in Window Rock at Steno. With that, Shenandoah Budget and Finance Committee, thank you for a good meeting. On this date, our next meeting is December 21st, 2021. So obviously we'll come back together again. Kayla, have a safe day and be careful out and about.
Chair Henio, are you going to be here to sign the committee report? I have one report.
I'll be here for about another hour or so.
Okay, I'll get it ready and bring it down to Steno, or I'll give it to Ramona to work with you on it. Thank you.
All
right, thank you, everybody. We'll have our next meeting December 21st.